The pen felt heavier than Vivian Carter expected, not because of the weight, but because of what it represented. It hovered between her fingers as the conference room lights hummed softly overhead, fluorescent and unforgiving, flattening every face into something colder, sharper, less human. The glass walls of the law firm's upper floor reflected the Chicago skyline in muted grays and blues, the city stretching endlessly behind her like it didn't care what was about to happen inside this room. Across the table, Marcus Hale leaned back in his chair, relaxed in a way that made the air feel thinner. His tailored charcoal suit was perfectly pressed, his cufflinks catching the light every time he moved his wrist. Confidence sat on him naturally now, like it had always belonged there. The kind of confidence that came from believing the outcome had already been decided. Beside him, draped casually against the arm of his chair, was Naomi Brooks. Younger, louder, dressed in a cream-colored power dress that screamed money and ambition, her manicured fingers resting possessively on Marcus's shoulder. She didn't look at Vivian directly. She didn't need to. Her smile said everything. At the far end of the table, Marcus's attorney slid the documents forward with a practiced motion. Thick, clean, final. Just sign, Marcus said, his voice smooth, almost bored. There's no reason to drag this out. We've all got places to be. Vivian looked at the papers, but didn't reach for them. She had learned long ago that reacting too quickly gave people the wrong kind of satisfaction. Instead, she folded her hands neatly in her lap, the sleeves of her faded navy coat brushing against the chair. The coat wasn't new. It wasn't expensive. It didn't need to be. Naomi laughed softly. Honestly, Vivian, this is the best deal you're going to get. You should be thanking Marcus. Marcus smirked. She's not good at gratitude. The words landed exactly where they were meant to. For 3 years, gratitude had been the currency of their marriage. Gratitude for the apartment she'd helped him get. Gratitude for the lifestyle he now enjoyed. Gratitude for being allowed to stand beside him as his world expanded and hers quietly disappeared. Vivian finally lifted her gaze to him. She studied his face without emotion. The sharp jawline, the carefully trimmed beard, the eyes that once looked at her like she was the only thing that mattered. Those eyes didn't exist anymore. The condo is in my name, she said calmly. And the car was a gift from my uncle. Marcus waved a dismissive hand. Details. You're walking away with more than you came in with. Be smart. From the corner of the room, Patricia Hale cleared her throat. Marcus's mother sat upright in a leather chair, pearls resting against her collarbone, her posture rigid with judgment. She had watched the entire exchange with thinly veiled disdain. Smart would have been knowing your place, Patricia said. My son built something real. You were just lucky enough to be around while it happened. Vivian didn't respond. She had learned that silence unsettled people like Patricia more than any argument ever could. Marcus leaned forward, lowering his voice. I have investors waiting. A board meeting in 48 hours. Naomi and I are moving on. I suggest you do the same. Naomi smiled wider, resting a hand over her stomach theatrically. We're starting a family. Fresh start. Clean slate. The room shifted. Subtle. Almost imperceptible. Vivian felt it anyway. Not pain. Not shock. Just confirmation. That's wonderful, Vivian said softly. Naomi blinked, momentarily thrown off. She'd expected something else. Tears. Anger. Anything that proved she mattered. The lawyer slid another document forward. There's also a non-disclosure agreement. Standard. You won't speak publicly about the marriage, the company, or the timing of the separation. Vivian nodded once. I have no interest in speaking about you. Patricia scoffed. As if anyone would listen. The pen waited. In the back of the room, a man sat quietly in a chair meant for interns and junior associates. He hadn't spoken once since entering. His dark suit was unremarkable, his posture relaxed but alert, a folded newspaper resting against his knee. He appeared invisible, which was exactly how he preferred it. Marcus noticed him only then. Who's that? Vivian didn't turn around. My witness. Marcus shrugged. Fine. Let's finish this. Vivian reached for the pen. The scratch of ink against paper was the only sound in the room as she signed her name. Once, twice, again and again. Each signature steady, precise, no hesitation. She signed away the version of her life that had been shrinking for years. Marcus snatched the documents the moment she finished, flipping through them quickly, his grin widening with every page. Good. We're done here. Patricia stood. Security will see you out. Vivian rose slowly, smoothing the front of her coat. She looked lighter somehow, as if the weight she'd been carrying had been set down quietly, without ceremony. I'll be leaving the city tonight, she said. Naomi laughed. Good. Go be invisible somewhere else. The man in the back finally stood. She'll be heading to the airstrip, he said. The voice cut through the room like a blade. Deep, calm, unmistakably authoritative. Marcus frowned. Excuse me. The man folded his newspaper and set it on the table. He stepped forward into the light, his presence shifting the energy in the room instantly. He moved with certainty, like the space already belonged to him. Vivian didn't look surprised. She simply turned slightly, aligning herself with him without touching. Marcus straightened. Who the hell are you? The man met his gaze evenly. I asked her to sign. Patricia's face drained of color as recognition dawned. Her pearls trembled against her throat. Oh no, she whispered. Marcus laughed nervously. This is ridiculous. The man's eyes never left him. You should have checked who you were humiliating. Vivian lifted her chin. Marcus, meet my father. Silence swallowed the room. Impossible, Marcus said. You told me. I told you I didn't come from money, Vivian replied. I didn't say it wasn't there. Her father stepped closer, resting a hand lightly on her shoulder. Not possessive, protective. My name is Raymond Carter, he said. And I've been watching. The air felt different now. Thicker. Charged. Marcus's smile collapsed. What happens next, Raymond continued, is entirely up to you. But understand this. Everything you think you've won today was allowed. Naomi took a step back. Patricia sank into her chair. Vivian picked up her coat and walked toward the door, her father beside her. She didn't look back. Behind them, the city waited. And somewhere deep inside Marcus Hale, something began to crack. Marcus Hale didn't move for 3 full seconds after the door shut. It wasn't shock the way people imagined it. Shock was loud. Shock made you flinch. What happened to Marcus was quieter than that. His mind reached for the version of reality that had been working 5 minutes earlier and found nothing to grab. He stared at the empty doorway like the truth might reverse itself if he waited long enough. Naomi was the first to breathe. Raymond Carter, she said, forcing a laugh that sounded too thin to belong in a room this expensive. That's, Marcus, that's not real. That's some old man with a suit and a voice. Anyone can say a name. Patricia Hale didn't answer. Her lips were slightly parted, eyes fixed on the table as if she'd just seen a stain appear in the wood. Marcus turned sharply to his attorney, Derek Langford. You knew about this? Derek blinked, then recovered fast. No, I had no idea who the witness was. She listed no family on record. Then why did my mother react like she saw a ghost? Marcus snapped. Patricia's eyes lifted. Because I've been in rooms you've never entered, she said softly. And I know what certain names do to people who think they're untouchable. Naomi's smile faltered. Patricia, please. He's nobody. He's not nobody. Patricia interrupted. He's Raymond Carter. Marcus tried to laugh again, but it didn't form. Okay, let's say he is. What does that change? Vivian signed. We have the papers. We have the NDA. She can't talk. This is over. Derek flipped through the documents quickly, as if paper could restore confidence. Legally, yes. You're divorced. The terms are binding. Marcus nodded, leaning back like he'd returned to control. Exactly. This is a scare tactic. She brought in some rich relative to make a dramatic exit. That's all. Patricia's voice stayed low. He said everything you think you've won today was allowed. Naomi rolled her eyes. So what? Rich people say weird things. Patricia stood slowly, smoothing her jacket, but her hands were trembling. Rich people don't say that unless they mean it. Marcus watched his mother, irritation mixing with something else he refused to name. You're being dramatic. Patricia looked at him like she was seeing him for the first time. No, Marcus. I'm being honest. You made a mistake today. Not by divorcing her. By humiliating her. The word hung in the room. Humiliating. Like a charge. Marcus scoffed. She needed to be humbled. She was getting too comfortable. Acting like she mattered. Naomi nodded eagerly. Exactly. She was dragging you down. Patricia's eyes sharpened. She mattered enough for him to show up. Derek cleared his throat. Let's stay practical. Even if Raymond Carter is who he claims, it changes nothing about the divorce filing. Unless he intends to litigate something else, your exposure is limited. Marcus clung to that. Right? Exposure is limited. Patricia stared at him. You sound like a man who believes paper is stronger than power. Marcus grabbed his phone. His fingers moved too fast on the screen. He typed the name. Raymond Carter. He expected to see old articles, outdated business bios, a face that didn't match the man he'd just watched walk out. Instead, the search results filled the screen like a wall. Raymond Carter. Chairman. Founder. Carter Meridian Holdings. Philanthropy. Real estate. Private equity. Industrial logistics. A foundation with his name on hospitals and scholarship programs. A net worth that wasn't even stated in the first paragraph because numbers that large didn't belong in casual conversation. Marcus swallowed. Naomi leaned over his shoulder and froze. That's him. Marcus zoomed in on the photo. Same face. Same calm eyes. Same posture. His throat tightened, not from fear exactly, but from the sudden awareness that he had been speaking loudly in a room that belonged to someone else. Derek watched the color drain from him. Marcus. No, Marcus shook his head. No, this is some coincidence. She can't be his daughter. Patricia's laugh was humorless. Why not? Because, Marcus stopped. Because she didn't act like it. Because she wore plain coats. Because she never mentioned it. Because she let him believe he was the prize. Because she let him win. Naomi stepped back from the phone, her confidence suddenly brittle. Why would she marry you if her father is? Marcus's eyes snapped to her. Watch your mouth. Naomi's jaw tightened. I'm just asking. None of this makes sense. Patricia grabbed her purse. It makes sense if you understand one thing. People like Raymond Carter don't rush. They watch. They measure. And they wait for the moment you think you're safe. Marcus stood abruptly. I'm not scared of him. Patricia paused at the door. You should be scared of what you don't know yet. The door clicked behind her, leaving Marcus with Derek, Naomi, and the oppressive silence of glass walls and city views. Naomi exhaled sharply. Okay, so what do we do? Marcus forced himself to sit, forced his voice to steady. We do nothing. We proceed. The board meeting is in 48 hours. The merger vote is in 48 hours. That's our reality. Not some billionaire ghost story. Derek hesitated. We should consider contingency measures. Marcus glared. Like what? Filing what? Against who? She signed. She's gone. Naomi tried to touch his shoulder, but he flinched away without thinking. She pulled her hand back, offended, then masked it with a smile. Marcus, look at me. You're still in control. You've built this. You've been building this for years. He stared at her as if she'd just spoken a foreign language. Built this. He thought of the company logo. Hillcrest Capital. He thought of the office floors he'd walked like a king. He thought of the new investors. The merger that would triple valuation. Then he thought of Raymond Carter's voice. Everything you think you've won today was allowed. Marcus stood again. Get out. Naomi blinked. What? Go. His tone was cold now. I need to think. Naomi's face hardened. Are you serious? After what we just... Go. Marcus repeated sharper. Now. Naomi gathered her purse with clipped movements and walked out in heels that sounded louder than they should have. The moment the door shut, Marcus turned to Derek. Find out everything about Vivian Carter. Where she's going. What she's doing. Who she's connected to. I want to know what's coming before it hits. Derek nodded. I'll have investigators on it. Marcus pointed to the papers. And get me something airtight. If Raymond Carter wants war, he's going to find out I'm not powerless. Derek hesitated. Marcus, with respect, this isn't a courtroom fight. This is leverage. Networks. Influence. He could. Enough. Marcus's eyes were sharp. I don't lose. I don't get humiliated. Not by her. Not by her father. Not by anyone. Derek lowered his gaze. Understood. Marcus watched him leave, then stood alone in the conference room with the divorce papers as proof of victory that no longer felt like victory. Outside, Chicago kept moving. Inside, Marcus Hale finally felt what he'd spent years pretending didn't exist. Vulnerability. Vivian sat in the back of a black SUV that smelled faintly of leather and clean citrus. The city blurred past the tinted windows, cold sunlight catching on glass towers and steel bridges. She watched it the way someone watched a memory they no longer belonged to. Raymond Carter sat beside her without crowding her space. He didn't ask how she felt. He didn't say, I told you so. He didn't need to. His silence carried more care than most people's speeches. The driver didn't speak. The vehicle moved smoothly south, toward a private airstrip outside the city limits, the kind of place with no signs and no crowds, where names weren't said out loud. Vivian finally broke the silence. He looked like he didn't recognize the ground under him. Raymond's expression didn't change, because he thought the ground was his. Vivian's hands rested calmly in her lap. I signed the papers. Raymond nodded once. You did what you needed to do. You're not angry? Raymond looked at her then, and his eyes carried something heavier than anger. Anger would mean I didn't anticipate it. I anticipated it. Vivian stared forward. So what now? Raymond leaned back slightly. Now we let him keep believing it's over. Vivian's mouth tightened. He'll investigate. Let him. Raymond's voice was quiet. Information is only power if it arrives before the consequence. Vivian thought about that. Thought about all the nights she'd laid awake listening to Marcus talk about himself as if he were building an empire alone. Thought about the way Patricia Hale had looked at her like a stain. Thought about Naomi's smile. She swallowed. I didn't want you to come. Raymond nodded. I know. You came anyway. I came because you asked me not to. He said it gently, not as a trap. When you stop asking for help, that's when people get swallowed. Vivian's eyes softened for half a second, then returned to calm. I'm not broken. I know. Raymond's gaze stayed steady. But you were being erased. Vivian looked down at her fingers. No rings. No polish. No visible signs of wealth. That had always been the point. Raymond spoke again. Marcus Hale did not marry you. He married what he thought you were. A nobody, Vivian said. Raymond's lips pressed into a thin line. A blank space he could fill with his ego. Vivian breathed out slowly. He'll try to hurt you. Raymond's voice didn't change. He will try. The SUV turned off the main road, passing through a gate that opened without pause. The airstrip appeared like a secret carved into flat land. A small jet waited on the tarmac, white and clean, with no logos on the tail. Vivian's eyes lingered on it. I'm not used to that. Raymond watched her without judgment. You were never supposed to be used to it. That's why you survived. The vehicle stopped. The driver stepped out and opened the door. The wind outside was sharp, carrying the scent of winter and jet fuel. Vivian stepped onto the ground and pulled her coat tighter around her body. She didn't shiver. She simply adjusted, like she always had. Raymond followed, then paused, scanning the perimeter with a quiet vigilance that belonged to men who'd outlived too many surprises. A man approached from the hangar, tall, broad-shouldered, black, mid-30s, wearing a dark pea coat and an earpiece. He walked with the kind of purposeful calm that told you he didn't need to prove anything. Mr. Carter, he said, flight plan is set. We'll be airborne in 12 minutes. Raymond nodded. Damien. Vivian glanced at him. Damien Cross. The name landed in her mind like a door she hadn't opened yet. Damien's eyes flicked to her, brief, Respectful, neutral. No curiosity. No pity. Just recognition of what she was to Raymond. Something protected. "Miss Carter," Damien said. Vivian returned the nod. Damien. He didn't smile. He wasn't there to be charming. Raymond looked between them. Damien handles security. He also handles transitions. Vivian understood enough not to ask questions on open ground. As they walked toward the jet, Raymond's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, then handed it to Damien without looking at it too long. Damien read it, and his jaw tightened by a fraction. They moved fast. Vivian stopped walking. "What is it?" Raymond's voice stayed even. "Marcus has already made calls." Vivian's gaze sharpened. "To who?" Damien answered, calm. "A private investigator. A law firm in New York. And someone inside your father's foundation tried to access restricted family records." Vivian's stomach tightened, but her face didn't change. "He's looking for leverage." Raymond nodded. "Of course he is." Damien's eyes stayed focused. "There's more. Hailcrest Capital's scheduled board meeting in 48 hours just got moved up." Vivian blinked once. "Moved up?" Damien's tone was flat. "To tonight." Raymond's expression remained unchanged, but the air around him shifted, like a storm forming without sound. Vivian's voice stayed calm. "Why would they do that?" Damien looked at Raymond before speaking. "Because Marcus is trying to outrun whatever he thinks you and your father are planning. He wants the merger locked in before anything touches it." Vivian stared at the jet. The engines weren't running yet. The sky was gray. Time suddenly felt like a weapon pointed both ways. Raymond took the phone back. He read for another second, then slid it into his coat pocket. "We won't stop him," Raymond said. Vivian's eyes snapped to him. "We won't." Raymond's gaze was steady. "If you stop him, he becomes a victim. If you allow him, he becomes responsible for his own collapse." Vivian's voice was low. "But if he locks in the merger, he gains power." Raymond's response was immediate and calm. "He gains the illusion of it." Damien's face remained controlled, but his posture hinted at urgency. "Mr. Carter, the board vote can be stopped if we—" Raymond held up a hand. "Not a command. A certainty." "No." Damien went quiet. Vivian studied her father's face. "So you want him to believe he's safe?" Raymond nodded. "Yes." Vivian's voice tightened slightly. "And then—" Raymond looked at the runway, then back at her. "Then we remove the ground from under him in public." The words settled into her bones. Not because they were violent, but because they were surgical. Cold. Planned. Damien stepped closer, speaking quietly. "There's a complication." Raymond didn't flinch. "Say it." Damien's eyes flicked toward Vivian, then back. "Marcus's investigator just requested footage from the law firm. Security camera copies. He's paying extra to get it today." Vivian's chest tightened. "So he'll see you." Raymond's expression didn't change. "He already saw me." Damien continued. "He wants to verify it wasn't staged. He's looking for weakness. For a lie." Vivian's hands curled slightly inside her sleeves. "He won't find one." Raymond's voice was calm. "No, but he will find something else. His own impatience." Damien's phone buzzed again. He checked it, then his eyes lifted, sharper. "Someone else made a call," Damien said. Raymond's gaze narrowed. "Who?" Damien's voice dropped. "Patricia Hale." Vivian's heart skipped once, controlled. "To Marcus?" Damien shook his head. "No, to someone in Atlanta. A man named Calvin Reese." Raymond's face didn't change, but the silence that followed was heavy. Vivian watched her father. "You know him?" Raymond's voice was quiet. "Yes." Damien continued, precise. "Reese is connected to—" Raymond cut him off. "I know what he's connected to." Vivian's stomach tightened. "What does that mean?" Raymond turned fully toward her now. His voice stayed gentle, but the truth inside it was sharp. "It means Marcus might not be the only one trying to hurt you." The wind brushed Vivian's hair across her cheek. She pushed it back slowly, her mind moving fast while her body stayed calm. Damien looked at Raymond. "If Patricia brought Reese in, this gets ugly." Raymond's eyes stayed on the runway. It was always ugly. We just kept it quiet. Vivian's throat tightened. So what happens now? Raymond didn't answer immediately. He walked toward the jet, Vivian and Damien following. The stairs lowered automatically as they approached. Inside, the cabin glowed with warm light and soft leather. A different world from the fluorescent divorce room. Raymond stepped in first, then paused at the door and looked back at the gray horizon. Now, he said softly, we stop letting people think you're alone. Vivian stepped into the cabin and sat by the window. Damien remained standing near the entrance, speaking into his earpiece in short, controlled phrases. Raymond sat across from her, folding his hands. He watched her the way he'd watched markets, negotiations, boardrooms, quietly, measuring what wasn't being said. Vivian met his gaze. Patricia is calling outsiders. Raymond nodded. Yes. She's scared. Raymond's eyes held no sympathy. She's calculating. Vivian leaned back. So she's not just protecting Marcus. No, Raymond said. She's protecting herself. Vivian's voice stayed calm, but the edges sharpened. From what? Raymond's gaze dropped for a moment, then returned. From what she did before you were ever married. Vivian's breath caught. She didn't let it show. What did she do? Damien stopped speaking and looked over, his attention tuned to the shift. Raymond's voice stayed steady. She tried to erase you once already. The cabin seemed to tighten around those words. Vivian's lips parted slightly. When? Raymond held her gaze. When you were 22. Vivian's mind flashed backward. An accident that didn't feel like an accident. A job offer that vanished overnight. A landlord who suddenly refused to renew a lease. A supervisor who became cold for no reason. She hadn't connected the dots because she'd been taught survival meant not staring too long at the pattern. Vivian's voice dropped. That was her. Raymond didn't move. It was her, and someone she hired. Damien's jaw tightened. Reese. Raymond nodded. Vivian stared out the window at the runway lights. So this isn't about Marcus. Raymond's voice was quiet. Marcus is the front. Patricia is the engine. Vivian's hands tightened together. And Naomi? Raymond paused, then spoke with precise certainty. Naomi is an opportunist. Dangerous only when she's given a platform. Vivian's eyes narrowed. So you're going to take the platform away? Raymond's gaze didn't blink. Yes. Damien's phone buzzed again. He checked it, then spoke without raising his voice. The board meeting tonight has a new attendee list, Damien said. 2 names weren't there yesterday. Raymond's eyes sharpened. Who? Damien read from the screen. Calvin Reese, and a woman named Tessa Lang. Vivian's stomach tightened. Who's Tessa Lang? Damien looked at Raymond. Derek Langford's sister. Vivian's head turned slowly. Derek, Marcus's attorney. Raymond's voice stayed calm. So the room is already compromised. Vivian's throat tightened, meaning they're planning something. Damien nodded once. They're not just rushing the merger. They're setting a trap. Tonight. Vivian stared at her father. For who? Raymond's eyes were steady, colder now. For you. The engines outside began to whine softly as the jet powered up. The cabin vibrated faintly. Vivian's voice was calm, but her words were sharp. I'm not even there. Raymond leaned forward slightly. That's why it's a trap. They're going to force your name into the room without you present. Vivian's eyes narrowed. How? Damien answered, controlled. They might file an emergency motion. Claim breach of NDA. Claim fraud. Claim you coerced Marcus. Anything that stains you publicly before your father can move. Vivian's jaw tightened. He'll try to make me the villain. Raymond nodded. Yes. Vivian's fingers pressed together. And if they succeed? Raymond's voice stayed calm. Then when we destroy him, he becomes a martyr to people who hate women like you. Vivian's eyes sharpened. So we can't let them set the narrative. Raymond's gaze held hers. Exactly. Damien stepped closer. Mr. Carter, we can redirect. We can land in New York. We can attend the board meeting physically. Raymond shook his head once. No. Vivian stared. Why not? Raymond's voice stayed measured. Because if we show up, they'll know we're reacting. I don't react. I sentence. The words landed like a law. Vivian's breathing stayed steady, but something inside her tightened into focus. So what do we do? Raymond leaned back, his eyes calm. We let them start the trap. Vivian's gaze sharpened. And then, Raymond's voice dropped slightly. And then we spring the real one. Damien's phone buzzed one more time. He checked it, then looked up, eyes sharper than before. They just did something, Damien said. Raymond's expression didn't change. What? Damien spoke slowly, like each word carried weight. Marcus just filed a restraining order. Vivian's body went still. A restraining order? Her voice was calm, but thin. Damien nodded. Against you. Alleging harassment and threats. Vivian stared at her father. That's insane. Raymond's gaze was ice. It's strategic. Vivian's chest tightened. He's painting me as unstable. Damien's voice remained controlled. And he filed it in a court that will process it fast. If a judge signs it tonight, it becomes public record. Vivian's eyes narrowed. So when the board meets tonight, they'll have a narrative. Raymond nodded once. Yes. Vivian's voice dropped. A black woman as the threat. Raymond didn't soften. Yes. Silence filled the cabin. The jet began to roll forward slowly. Vivian stared out the window as the runway lights slid past. Her reflection in the glass looked calm, but her eyes were sharp with something colder than anger. Raymond's voice cut through the silence. This is why I watched, he said. Because men like Marcus don't just want to win. They want to rewrite history so their cruelty looks justified. Vivian swallowed. So what now? Raymond's eyes stayed steady. Now you learn the difference between defending yourself and controlling the story. Damien stepped back, speaking into his earpiece again, his tone clipped but calm. He listened, then looked up. One more thing, Damien said. Raymond didn't blink. Say it. Damien's voice was low. The restraining order filing includes an attachment. A statement from a witness. Vivian's stomach tightened. Who? Damien hesitated for half a beat, then said it. Your cousin, he said. Lena Carter. Vivian didn't move. Her eyes stayed on the window, but her face changed slightly. Not with emotion. With recognition. Like a door inside her had quietly closed. Raymond's gaze hardened. Lena. Vivian's voice was barely above a whisper. She was at my apartment last month. Damien nodded. And now she's claiming you threatened Marcus. Vivian's lips pressed together. She's lying. Raymond's voice stayed calm. Or she's being paid to tell the truth the way they need it told. Vivian's hands tightened in her lap. So Patricia reached into my bloodline. Raymond nodded. Yes. Vivian's breathing stayed steady. Then this isn't just war. Raymond's eyes held hers. No. This is infiltration. The jet gained speed. The engines roared. The cabin pressed gently back into motion as the ground fell away. Vivian watched the airstrip shrink below them, watched the world become smaller, colder, quieter. Raymond's voice came again, calm as law. By the time Marcus finishes his board meeting tonight, he said, he will believe he has trapped you. Vivian's eyes narrowed. And that's what you want. Raymond nodded. Yes. Vivian's voice was steady now, colder. Because when he believes he's safe. Raymond finished the sentence for her. That's when we remove his name from every room he's ever tried to own. Vivian stared out at the clouds, her reflection steady in the glass. And for the first time since the divorce room, her calm was not survival. It was control. And somewhere in Chicago, Marcus Hale was smiling again, because he believed he had turned the story. He had no idea he had just given them the perfect reason to end him in public. The boardroom at Halecrest Capital filled faster than Marcus Hale expected. Not with noise, with weight. Men and women in tailored suits took their seats around the long polished table, tablets lighting up quietly. Murmured greetings exchanged with the careful neutrality of people who understood power too well to waste words. The city skyline loomed behind the glass wall. Chicago stretched out beneath them like an audience that didn't know it was about to witness something irreversible. Marcus stood at the head of the table, hands resting lightly on the surface, posture confident again. Not because the fear was gone, but because he had learned how to weaponize it. He smiled. "Thank you for coming on such short notice," he said. "I thought it best we move quickly, given the circumstances." Several board members exchanged glances. Speed made people uneasy. Marcus knew that. He also knew hesitation was more dangerous than discomfort. Naomi Brooks sat 2 seats down, composed now, her earlier rattling carefully concealed beneath professional calm. She wore navy tonight, conservative, board-appropriate. She had practiced this version of herself in mirrors. Marcus continued, "Before we begin, I want to address something that may already be circulating." He tapped the tablet in front of him. The screen behind him lit up. A legal filing appeared. Temporary restraining order granted. There it was. Official. Clinical. Clean. A ripple moved through the room. Not panic. Interest. Marcus kept his tone regretful, measured. "This is not something I wanted to do. But recent events forced my hand." A man near the middle leaned forward. "Events?" Marcus nodded. "My ex-wife has been unstable since the divorce. Threats. Harassment. Attempts to interfere with company operations." Naomi lowered her eyes at precisely the right moment. Marcus sighed softly. "I protected her for a long time. Tonight, I'm protecting this company." The words were surgical. Responsibility without aggression. Victimhood without weakness. A woman on the board, gray hair pulled back tightly, frowned. "That's a serious allegation." Marcus met her gaze. "That's why I let the court speak for me." Silence followed. The dangerous kind. The kind where decisions calcified quietly. At the far end of the table, Derek Langford cleared his throat. "If I may, the restraining order is provisional but valid. It establishes that Mr. Halecrest acted within legal boundaries to protect corporate interests." He paused. "Given that, I recommend we proceed with the merger vote." Marcus allowed a half-second of hesitation before nodding. "I agree." A board member tapped his tablet. "And the rumors about her father?" Marcus smiled faintly. "Unverified. Dramatic. Convenient." Naomi glanced up. "If anything, it reinforces the need for discretion." The woman with the gray hair studied Marcus closely. "So you're saying this billionaire father is fiction?" Marcus shrugged lightly. "I'm saying if he exists, he chose not to intervene when his daughter was married, humiliated, and divorced. That tells me everything I need to know." A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. Marcus felt the ground solidify beneath his feet. He pressed forward. "Halecrest Capital is not a family drama. It's a business. And tonight, we lock in the future." The screen shifted. Merger vote. Halecrest Capital and Northline Industrial Partners. Marcus's pulse steadied. Northline was the crown jewel. Logistics. Infrastructure. Government contracts. Once this deal closed, his name would be cemented into rooms where people like Raymond Carter didn't get to erase him. "Call the vote," Marcus said. Hands began to rise. Not all at once. Not confidently, but enough. Marcus counted silently. 1, 2, 3. At the back of the room, the doors opened. No announcement. No interruption. Just a shift in pressure. A man entered calmly, tall, broad-shouldered, black, wearing a dark suit that didn't advertise wealth, but carried it anyway. His presence bent the room without asking permission. Behind him walked a woman in a tailored black dress, tablet tucked against her side, eyes sharp, posture immaculate. They didn't rush. They didn't apologize. They took seats. Marcus's hand froze midair. The room went still. "Who authorized?" Marcus began. The man didn't look at him yet. He adjusted his cuff, glanced at the tablet in front of him like he belonged there. "Proceed," he said. The voice was familiar. Marcus swallowed. "Mr. Carter," Marcus said tightly. "You're not on the attendee list." Raymond Carter lifted his gaze. Calm. Unbothered. Neither is fear. Yet here it is. Several board members stiffened. The woman beside him tapped her tablet, projecting something onto the screen. A filing appeared. Emergency injunction. Northline Industrial Partners. Ownership transfer pending review. The room erupted, not loudly, but in fragments. Whispers. Chairs shifting. Tablets lighting up. Marcus slammed his palm onto the table. This is outrageous. You have no standing here. Raymond's eyes finally met his. You're mistaken. The woman spoke then, her voice clipped, precise. Northline Industrial Partners is a subsidiary of Carter Meridian Holdings. 82% controlling interest. Marcus's breath caught. That's impossible, Naomi said, standing. Northline is independent. Raymond tilted his head slightly. It was. The gray-haired woman leaned forward slowly. Are you saying? Raymond nodded once. The merger you're voting on tonight is mine to approve. Or deny. Silence swallowed the room. Marcus's jaw tightened. This is retaliation. Raymond's voice stayed even. This is due diligence. Derek stood abruptly. This board meeting is being manipulated. Raymond's gaze flicked to him. You filed a restraining order under false pretenses. Derek froze. The woman beside Raymond tapped again. Another document filled the screen. Affidavit withdrawal. Witness, Lena Carter. Marcus's blood ran cold. Raymond continued calmly. The witness you cited recanted an hour ago. She admitted she was compensated. Naomi gasped softly. That's not. Raymond raised a hand. The room quieted immediately. The court vacated the order 15 minutes ago, he said. Public record. Marcus's chest tightened. You can't just. I can, Raymond said quietly. And I did. The gray-haired woman's eyes sharpened. Mr. Hale, did you attempt to weaponize the legal system against a private citizen? Marcus opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Raymond leaned back slightly. I don't enjoy speaking in rooms like this. But when my daughter's name is used as leverage, I respond. Naomi's composure cracked. You planned this. Raymond looked at her for the first time. No, I allowed it. He turned back to the board. Let me be clear. Carter Meridian will not partner with an organization led by someone willing to fabricate threats, bribe witnesses, and manipulate narrative to preserve ego. Marcus felt the walls closing in, not violently, but legally, procedurally, with witnesses. So what? Marcus snapped. You pull out and tank the deal? Raymond shook his head. No. He nodded to the woman beside him. She stood. Carter Meridian is prepared to acquire Halecrest Capital's outstanding debt. The room inhaled collectively. Marcus's voice dropped. Acquire. Raymond's eyes stayed on him. Your loans. Your leverage. Your obligations. The gray-haired woman whispered. That would make you. Majority creditor, Raymond said. Effective immediately. Marcus's legs felt hollow. You can't, he whispered. Raymond's tone was calm, almost kind. You should have considered who you were humiliating before you made this a public performance. Marcus turned to the board, desperation creeping in. You won't let this happen. No one moved. No one spoke. Raymond rose slowly. The room followed instinctively, some standing, some frozen in their seats. I won't embarrass you further, Raymond said. You've done that yourself. He looked at Marcus one last time. This meeting is adjourned. The woman beside him gathered her tablet. As they turned to leave, Raymond paused. One more thing, he said, not looking back. My daughter will not attend meetings like this. She doesn't need to. Marcus swallowed. Where is she? Raymond's answer was quiet, final. Watching. The doors closed behind them. The room sat in stunned silence. Marcus sank into his chair as the realization settled. Not that he had lost, but that he had never been winning. And somewhere far above the city, Vivian Carter stood at a window overlooking a different skyline, her phone vibrating softly in her hand. A message appeared. Board neutralized. Narrative reversed. Phase 1 complete. She exhaled once. Not in relief. In preparation.